Welcome back to Legends, and in this new season, our first guest began his life in Bimini, but he rose to such heights that his name has been echoed throughout the world. Bishop Neil Ellis details his path to leadership. Bishop Neil Ellis, thank you for being on Legends again.
What a joy it is to join you, Julian. The first time I was with a soccer, but this time I'm with a great giant. Life just keeps getting better.
I tell you. Well, let's start at the beginning.
Yes.
You're a Bimini boy.
Yes, I am.
And tell us about your early years in Bimini and what that was like.
Well, Julian, let me just say kudos to all the Biminites, because I'm a proud Biminite. And I am eternally grateful for the tremendous depth of love and affection, support and discipline that I got in my embryonic years living in Bimini. I spent 11 years in Bimini, and I will regret none of those years. They were very, very fruitful. Totally different from moving into the city. Of course, I came from one of the poorest areas of Bimini called Paugi Bay. Just look at the name they give our community. So I'm from Paugi Bay, but Julian, I never knew I was poor until I came to Nassau, because love covered a multitude of sins, the Bible puts it, but I would also add shortages. Love takes care of all of that. The kind of love we got from Miss Virgie and Miss Sarah and Miss Annie and Miss Edith and Auntie Alice and Auntie Wealthy and all of them, Miss Julia, can't forget her. The kind of love and support we got as children from the neighboring persons in the community made up for our lack. So we as children, we thought this was normality for everybody.
Yeah.
Because while we didn't have much, we didn't feel deprived. We felt loved, we felt cared for, we felt nurtured. And I'm grateful to God for those first 11 years of my life. And of course, at age 11, I was sent to Nassau,
But while you were in primary school, let's say, what was what excited you academically at that time? What did you like? What subjects did you take
I didn't really like any of the sciences. I didn't like any of the languages. I didn't like anything that required an examination.
Oh, okay, I got that.
But what I did like was the drama stuff and the what we used to call then the recitations and all of that. To the point when I was 11, I was entered into the. You remember they used to have the Clement Bethel. Oh gosh, music and drama festival.
Okay, it's been evolved now. But
yeah. They revamped it and did some other things to it now. It was called the Music, Arts and Drama Festival, and I was chosen when I was in grade 6 to be the representative for the Bimini All-Age School. I came to Nassau, participated in the competition that was held at the Dundas. So I had to do a narration of a lawyer in a courtroom.
Wow.
Trying to defend my client. And might I say, this Bimini boy, this Bimini boy won the contest.
How old were you then?
I would have been 10, going on 11.
Well, obviously that's some foundation for things like, and that's what and I'm sure you believe this too, that everything in your life is preparing you for where you're going.
Yeah, I believe, Julian, basically, everything that happens in your life prepares you for one major event. or one major assignment. And you got to be careful that you don't dismiss what looks like a minor situation. And that's whether positive or negative, good or bad, because life is an interesting mixture of good and bad, ups and downs. One day you're doing good, another day you have a challenge. But it's managing the challenges and appreciating the blessings. That one situation, Julian, that had me to win the Clement Bethel speech contest in the country that year prepared me for another platform. Incredible story. About 2 months after I won the contest, it was announced in Bimini that the Premier of the Bahamas, this is 72, the Premier of the Bahamas is making an official visit to Bimini.
Oh boy.
That's Mr. Pinlin.
Right.
So this is going to be his official visit and his first visit since he was elected Premier. And because I had just recently won the dramatization contest, I was asked to do the welcome to the Prime Minister, to the Premier, on behalf of the people of Bimini. And I did a 3-minute welcome, Julian, written by somebody else. It wasn't my material. All I had to do was learn it and recite it. And those 3 minutes changed the trajectory of my life. Because Mr. Pinlin acknowledged in front of that big crowd, he said, that young man who did the welcome, where is he? And my daddy jumped up, he's right here, that's my son. I'm proud father, you know. And Mr. Pinlin offered me, he said these words, he said, he is too big for this little island. He said, we got to get him off the school.
Exceptionally true
That's,
words when you look back.
I'm telling you, this man was a prophet. That's how I got into St. John's, not on a government scholarship, Julian. So Mr. Pinlin personally paid my first year for high school.
Wow.
All right? I'd already sat the exam for St. John's, St. Augustine's, Queen's College, and Prince William's. But my daddy said, I passed the ball. My daddy said, boy, you number 7. I was the 7th child. And he said, ain't no more money. So I had, in my own mind, concluded either I was going to go to get a job going fishing or doing something, but I know, unlike 3 of my other brothers who had gone away to school, I wasn't going to have the opportunity. And Mr. Pinlin came, made a visit to Bimini, and it changed my life. I will never forget that man as long as there's breath in my body.
But that's also a major brush with real leadership too.
Yes, see, rare leaders could spot leaders. You see, and Mr. Pinlin, I think he was doing more than just helping me to go to school. He was trying to make sure I had the proper preparation for what he could sense was on me, which was some degree of leadership. He knew it. I didn't know it at the time. Man, I was 10 years old.
Not even thinking about it.
No, all I want to know is, what's next. But Sir Lyndon stayed in touch with me, Julian, throughout my tenure in high school. Every May or June, I got a call from him, followed up by a letter from the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth. If you go in the Neil C. Ellis Library and Museum, you'll see a copy of one of the letters. He has changed my life, and I'm grateful.
I'm sure that still motivates you to this day. Yeah.
Without a doubt, and so that's why, I go back to Bimini every year now with the Neil Ellis Award of Excellence. And I find one 6th grader and send them to private school every year on my dime, because you got to pay forward. And so this is, man, when I talk this kind of story, I could get stuck here for hours, because I'm just so grateful for the way the Lord used this man to change the direction of my life.
Welcome back. Bishop Ellis, we were talking about your early years and the role
Yes.
that Celindan played in your life.
Yes.
And that's amazing. And then you have done the same thing for another young person from Bimini.
I think that's the cycle of life. You know, the Lord bless you or blesses you, you have to reach out and bless others. The Lord never blesses you to enjoy the blessing all by yourself. He blesses you in a way that you can reach out, be a blessing to someone else, and we hope and pray that the cycle continues.
Now, you moved from Bimini to Nassau.
Yeah.
You did come to Nassau once before for that
For the
performance in
contest.
Dundas,
Yes,
right?
yes.
What was the big city like for you, contrasting that to Bimini?
Let's put it like this, Julian. After the first term in St. John, I was ready to stay home. I didn't want to come back.
Really?
No,
It's just way too different.
It was too different. But life was, like I said, I was poor in Bimini, but I didn't know it. I got to Nassau and realized I'm poor because I'm seeing the variety of life, et cetera, et cetera. And then I lived in Montel Heights. Now imagine Montel Heights and imagine St. John's on the Hill. I had to
And you had to
walk
walk.
there every morning and walk back with my bag and my books and all of the, oh, it was too challenging. And life was fast. Bimini had a slower pace where you could, you could kind of manage, but you could get rolled over with life coming to Nassau if you weren't ready for that level.
And were there other people from Bimini there at the time when you first
In St.
went?
John's?
Yeah.
Oh, a
So-
whole
yes.
bunch because Dudley Strawn was the principal.
There you go. So making friends really wasn't a challenge.
No, and I had friends who I would walk with. It's just, after you get back home, life was lonely and there was no playground. There was no playing in the street and all of that like I'd have been, accustomed to in Bimini. When school is out, you go home, take your bath, do your homework, and you hit the street on Bogey Bay. You either shooting marbles, you're doing something. But there were the neighborhood children. I didn't see that in Montel Heights. And then Montel Heights at that time, in the early 70s, was drug stricken.
starting to come.
Yeah.
So you had to be careful.
We had to be very careful. Then you start hearing gunshots and stuff in the 80s, in the 70s. And so, no, man, that life frightened me here. And I wasn't sure this is where I wanted to be. But Julian, I've come to realize over the years that wherever you are experiencing your challenges, that's for the most part where your greatest part of the journey gonna be. And most people run from their challenges, like I was getting ready to, instead of confronting their challenges. You cannot ever conquer what you do not confront. And my daddy said, boy, you're going back and you're gonna do well. And I kept hearing that in my ear. And then by the second year, when we went back to school, the second year, I went into school and lo and behold, this young, stunning, good-looking, under 30 teacher.
Whom we all knew and had a crush on.
Yeah! See, I didn't even have to call the name when you...
To kill a mockingbird.
Yeah. Oh, she was dangerous with that, man.
Oh,
She
boy, I
taught
tell
that
you.
like, ooh, I still watch that today. And, but for some reason, like God used Mr. Pinlin at the time to grab me out of Bimini and get me to Nassau. God used this teacher of mine to develop a kind of love for me where she grabbed me out of Montel Heights and took me to Sea Breeze. That's where she lived. I'm speaking about Sharon Wilson, Lady Wilson today. And I remember one day she came and she said, aren't you from Bimini? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, but there's something about you that's different. I've been telling my husband about you. I want you to meet him. And she took me that weekend to spend the weekend with them. And that, again, solidified the trajectory that I was on. And so I found myself living with Franklin and Sharon Wilson before they celebrated their first wedding anniversary.
And that's really a major undertaking in itself.
Yes.
Did you just
I
get
just,
married
I
there?
just, yeah, I just.
And you weren't a baby?
No,
I don't know.
I was 11 going on 12 then. But it's just amazing how, see, obviously Mr. Pinlin saw something. Obviously Sharon Wilson saw something. She took me to her house. Her husband saw something. And he was like, man, you want to come back next weekend? And I did. And just before I knew it, I was living there.
I have to say something at this point because when I first came into St. John's College, I came in the second form.
Right.
In the second form.
Right.
And I saw
Yeah, we would have called you seaweed at the time because you like jumped ship from somewhere else and came to us. You didn't start out with us, you see. But eventually, you were a good boy, so we accepted you.
Best move.
It was the best move for you?
Move for me.
Oh, that St. John's was a major
amazing.
place. Yeah.
But the thing is, I remember seeing you, right?
Really?
And you could tell that you were a leader at the time. And just last night, as we were talking, I thought you were head boy, but you weren't.
No. That year, our graduating year, everybody thought I was going to be the head boy, students and teachers. But Father Strawn had other reasons not to do that, I guess. And so he announced another head boy, and the Form 5s, which were in the grade 11s, they rebelled.
Wow.
And their rebellion led to the establishment of the student government in St. John's College. And they elected me as the president. So nobody could hardly remember who was the head boy that year. Because as the president, I led I remember they said, we want a graduation. Because you know St. John's and they had speech days. We never had graduations. Right. And they said, we want a graduation. Neil, go to the principal. You are president. Tell him we want a graduation. I went to Father Strawn, and he said, there'll be no graduation here. We're having speech day in November. You come back after you finish school and get your credentials, etc. And I went back to all the students, and I remember Kendall Major, who eventually served as speaker for the House of Parliament here. He said, and you accepted that? So I had to go back. Father Strawn turned me down again, but the students said, let's have a graduation. And we had a graduation.
Wow.
We had rings for the first time.
So causing little storms and making things happen.
Well, you know.
Shaking up the system.
Yeah, we shook up the system. It wasn't designed to cause storms.
No, that shouldn't be
yeah,
the wrong word.
no, but I understand the context. But the thing is, Julian, at that graduation, every teacher in the school was there. Every teacher.
So I guess by now, if you had any doubts about your leadership abilities.
Right.
You
That's the
realized
first
that.
time. That was the first
realized
time because we got to planning the graduation, and then we got to, okay, who's going to be the valedictorian? And they said, what you mean? We'll be our president. And it hit me, oh, Jesus, I'm the leader for these people. And that's when I realized, okay, I got some kind of leadership skills here.
We're speaking with Bishop Neil Ellis, and of course you become valedictorian at St. John's College. You realize that you have leadership skills.
Right.
When did you get the call, that big call?
But you know, afterwards I went to COB, and after COB I became a general manager of Chicken Unlimited. And leadership. I was general manager at 19. I was only supposed to sit in for 2 weeks while they do the legal work to close it down. But I saw some potential. And I ended up staying there 8 years, expanded the business from 2 stores to 4 stores. And shortly after we opened the 4th store, I got this invitation from Sir Lyndon.
Again?
Yes, to be a candidate in the election.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, I don't really talk it, because he didn't talk it, you know. But I got this thing, and he gave me 7 days to answer him. And so I went to Bimini, I talked to my parents, I talked to my siblings, I talked to the movers and shakers of Bimini, because he wanted me to run for West End of Bimini.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah,
Understandable.
yeah, and so Julian, I literally had my first mini rally while I was down there. Oh, this is so crazy. And then the night before I was to answer Sir Lyndon, I had an experience. I still don't know what to call it. I'm not sure if it was a dream, a vision, I don't know, but I know I had a real experience. And I could remember these words very clearly. Wrong P. Wrong P. I went to my pastor at the time, Earl Francis, who would also endorse me to go into politics and answer Sir Lyndon in the affirmative. And I said, Pastor, I had this dream, or I had this something. And when I told him, he started laughing. I said, man, Pastor, why are you laughing? He said, boy, you got to change your mind. You can't tell Mr. Penland yes. I said, well, so what is the P? If that's the wrong P, what's the right P? He said, the pulpit. That was my call, Julian. Wow. I had no shake-up experience. I had no Damascus Road and Paul experience. My pastor, who I had high regard for and trusted, he said, not politics, the pulpit. And that shifted the course of my life.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
But the amazing thing is, and I mentioned this to you off camera, because really, you and Miles Monroe are probably the most prolific and well-known, most renowned preachers of the gospel from the Bahamas.
Yeah.
I remember Miles when he was in London, when I was based in London at the High Commission. He was
Right.
like, I should have a diplomatic passport. And I was a little bit taken back with that. He says, no, I need one because I'm spreading the Bahamas name all over the world.
He was.
And he did. He was right. I got it later.
Yeah.
And so do you.
Yeah, and now Miles got a head start on me. So Miles had emerged ahead of me. Of course, he was older than I am. Yeah. But it got to the point where, like, Miles was dominating in the Caribbean and dominating in Africa and dominating a little in Europe, and I was locking down America. All right, and but we enjoyed a wonderful relationship. Matter of fact, I spoke at his funeral, and then Miles gone and left me. And it was like I was a solo person, not that others were not having an experience abroad and traveling, etc., but in terms of the name recognition. And I don't know if it's anybody else. I'm waiting to see who else is going to emerge. And I'm in great prayer for that, because even though I've retired from Mount Tabor, the demand abroad still rings heavily. And so I'm still in and out of the country quite a bit.
Which is good, because you're still young.
Young, yes, I am, but I retired when I did because of instruction from the Lord. And but I'm just so grateful to God, Julian, and I had the opportunity to organize a global organization. I organized it with the help of a lot of people, and God blessed the work to the point where after 10 years when I retired, we had just under 1,500 churches in 42 countries. And I'm telling you now, they just gave me a recent report. This is June of 2025. And at that point, at the end of April, we were now in 46 countries. So my successor, Bishop Joel Peoples, is doing an incredible job growing the work. And it's just a joy sitting back and watching the fruit of your labor with the fellowship, and there at Mount Tabor with Bishop Delton, just watching how these guys are maneuvering. They worked with me over the years. We were able to pour into them, and now they're going for themselves, and it's a joy to watch.
And I'm not talking about politics now,
Yes.
because leadership comes in every
Yes,
discipline.
yes.
What do you think is most important, the most important attribute for a leader in 2025?
First of all, the real problem with leadership in our country and elsewhere, but this is where we live, this is what we are around most, is the lack of trust. people are coming to the place where they're very skeptical about leaders, including church leaders. All right, and that is primarily because leaders in almost every sphere of life here in our country, in a lot of cases, have been poor representatives of what we know to be leadership. You gotta have values. That's the first thing.
How do we deal with that when they're not exhibiting these characteristics?
This is what I'm saying. That's why they're not trustworthy like used to be. Because see, people, first of all, people don't just trust you based on what you accomplished, you know. The first criteria, people begin to trust you based on what they observe you are able to survive. To survive. They don't like quitters. People don't like quitters. You gotta survive. Everybody have issues. Everybody have, man, Julian, I led Mount Tabor for 36 years. I remember on my 5th year, I had this vicious attack from the tabloid. You remember, back in the early 90s? Yeah, and I was the headline for 86 consecutive weeks. You can imagine that? Wow. That's almost 2 years. But every Sunday, I showed up in Mount Tabor. I did my assignment. And every Monday night and Wednesday night, I did my assignment. And
it didn't break.
It didn't break. And that's where I really earned my national influence. People, look what this guy came through. And he came through in living colors. It didn't affect his church. It didn't affect him. His marriage is still solid. Thank God for Patrice Ellis, 42 years this year. And but see, people look at that. And then I remember we started having this service every year just for women. Just for women. It's always one of the biggest services for the year. Women from family islands would come in and be in this. And one of them was asked one time by the media people who showed it to me, why do you fly in to Nassau every year for this service just for women? She said, because we women trust Bishop Ellis. They ask her, why you could say you trust Bishop Ellis? We see how he handles his wife and his foster mother.
It shows you that people are looking at
people
you when you don't even know it.
Julian, they watching. This is, if I could challenge any group of persons in the Bahamas today, it'll be leaders. We've got to come back to the place where we recognize once you pick up the mantle of leadership, you cannot put yourself first. You can't put yourself first. If you are the leader, the only first you could be is out front. But when it comes to service and productivity, it can't be about you. You can't think about yourself. You got to think about the people you lead.
Bishop, we got to take a very short break, and we'll be back, and I'll allow you to say some closing words, whatever.
Closing?
Closing words.
That mean like we finish it?
Half hour.
I gotta
should have a part two with you.
I gotta check. I gotta check the clock y'all be using.
Stay with us. We're here in our final segment of Legends, the Untold Story with Bishop Neil Ellis. It's been a great, wonderful conversation. I'll leave the final moments up to you, Bishop, to say whatever you feel you should say this time.
Well, let me just say, Julian, and thank you very much for having me. It's been good to see you again. And I'll just say to this, I've been blessed by our God, and he's given me the privilege to travel around the world, to preach and teach the word of God. And I've seen a lot, people, places, cultures, things, behavioral patterns, etc. And I've come to the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, there's no place quite like the Bahamas. With all the challenges we may have, with all of the issues that we may be confronted with, God has given us this land, and we ought to do everything we can to preserve it. Not just the geography, but also the people.
Amen. Thank you for being on Legends, Bishop.
Bless you, my friend. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Likewise.
Great. Blessings to your family. And thank you for joining us, and we'll have another wonderful show next time on Legends, the Untold Story.